Hello, and welcome to the Yearbooking Report podcast, an independent resource for yearbook advisors and staffs across America and beyond. I'm Scott Giese, and thanks again for tuning in. It's the start of another exciting school year. You are excited, right? Yes? It's okay if you're not. Some teachers and a lot of students aren't exactly wound up to end summer break. I was at a back-to-school night in mid-August before classes had begun at one particular school. Parents were bringing their kids to the building to just pick up some materials. Some of those kids didn't seem thrilled to be heading back, but maybe that's always been the case. On the yearbook front, the start of a new school year is both exciting, but also, scary. You're starting the project all over again, and it reminds me of an old riddle. Maybe you've heard this. How do you eat an elephant? The answer, of course, one bite at a time. Right now, a new yearbook effort looks like that elephant. It's huge and too much to handle. We need to remember to start lining up those bites one at a time on this year-long journey. And to help get off to a good start, we tracked down Liz Walsh. Liz is a creative accounts manager for Jostens Yearbooks, and transparency alert, she's a longtime friend. We asked the former award-winning advisor from Nevada for some concrete strategies to begin a new year, not vague ideas. And Liz delivered for us. So get ready to do some note-taking if you're a rookie advisor or even a longtime veteran. And for you veterans, maybe some past stuff is getting stale. Well, catch her answer on whether yearbook today is the same as it was 20 years ago. That's coming up. First off, let's meet Liz. First off, let's welcome back to the Yearbooking Report podcast, my friend Liz Walsh, who I think is awesome. And Liz, first off, thanks for joining me today. Appreciate your time.
Well, thanks for having me, Scott. I appreciate you asking me to come and talk to people today.
All right, now, transparency alert here, folks. Liz and I used to work for the same company, so we know each other very, very well. And later on, our main topic for this particular episode is going to be starting the year, all right? And not, vague stuff. Well, you should sell your books. You should take pictures. I asked Liz to come up with a bunch of ideas that pretty much any yearbook staff could probably do right here at the get-go. So we're talking here in mid-August as school is, maybe underway for some folks. Other folks in the next 2, 3, 4 weeks, whatever it turns out to be, depending on where you live. All right, so we'll get to that here in just a bit. First off, Liz, for folks that don't know who you are, if you would give us some background on you. You used to be a fantastic yearbook advisor and teacher. Now you work for one of the major companies. So let's start with that, if you would. Tell us about your background, yourself, what you do right now, and so on. All right, go for it.
Okay. Sure. I started advising and was just a baby advisor and a baby teacher back in the day. Spent 4 years at a private Catholic school, learned quite a bit about yearbooking during that time. And there opened a brand new school, moved from that brand new school to Northern Nevada out of Las Vegas, moved up to Reno, and at the largest school in the Washoe County School District. Spent some time balancing between yearbook and newspaper and speech and debate and sophomore English and a really fun elective called sports literature. And then moved to the oldest school in Nevada, Reno High School. Spent quite a bit of time there from 2004 to 2016. In 2016, I came back down to Las Vegas and I advised at a career and technical academy, and I advised the newspaper and assisted with the yearbook until I was able to get this really cool job where I get to yearbook every day and I don't have to. So now I get to yearbook every day with a wide variety of people across the U.S. I mostly work with classes and clubs in the northeast part of the United States, and I have gathered quite a few ideas from all of these wonderful people who have been willing to share. So now I basically, like Johnny Appleseed, go and spread these cool seeded ideas to other programs to see what will flourish.
Here's a question I'm not sure I ever asked you before. All right, you're from Nevada. I'm from the Northeast. All right, you mentioned that. Do you have like ton of frequent flyer miles? I mean, I would think you probably would work the western part of the country, but you work primarily with schools in the eastern, northeastern area. I don't know. I've never asked this. Do you do a ton of like physical traveling, or most of it is kind of
I
online, like what we're doing right now?
I have a nice balance of both. My September is usually very heavily physical travel. I go and do workshops. Fall workshops are so important. Let's get everybody on the train and going in the same direction. So fall workshops are really heavy from the beginning of September through the beginning of October. I am physically in a lot of schools. Then after that, I do a lot of video consulting simply because it's a lot easier and really more respectful of everybody's time and money and effort. So I do a combination of both, and I really love it.
All right. Now, actually, you kind of hit a question I was going to ask. All right. Now, we're talking here in mid-August in this case. Is this your busiest time of the year? And I'm trying to think teachers in general, right before the school year starts, oh my gosh, got to set up my room, oh, I got to do all these things. Is this your busiest time of the year? Because the yearbook, all right, school starts, distribution time is extremely busy. Is it now, later? What's the busiest time of year for you?
This is the busiest time for me, and I would say for a lot of yearbook advisors, it is as well, because the key to having a successful program, whether it is you're teaching sophomore English or you are running a yearbook, it's the same thing. Front planning equals a lot of management of issues that you would have in the back end if you hadn't planned. So I always think of teaching, but also yearbooking as I can get a Scantron rated very quickly at the end and be finished, but it takes forever to create that actual Scantron test. Same rule for yearbooking. I can have deadlines met when the deadlines approach if I've done all of the pre-planning to make sure that all of the things that needed to happen actually happened. So I am a huge fan and advocate of backwards management. We take a look at where we need to be and then figure out all the steps that it takes us to get there. So there's a huge amount of front loading. I usually think of it as a giant dump truck dumping all of the things that we are going to have to then sort out and put where we need to put them.
Giant dump truck. Okay. I'm just getting this mental image like, there it goes. Ooh, yeah.
That's exactly what it is.
Or fire hose or something. I don't know. Dump truck, fire hose, kind of the same thing. All right. Now, you and I have been doing this for a long time. Okay. I spent 25 years in the field as a rep. And I was thinking about this question the other day because you may disagree with me. Okay. I try to keep track of different yearbook companies. There's a lot of them now, doing all the various things that they do. And when I think about, okay, what's new this year, it's always some tech tool or some new function in their program. Oh, look, we can do this now, and that sort of thing. Think back 20 years ago. Is yearbook any different now than it was then? And I'm not talking necessarily about the tools. I'm thinking more about this thing that we're creating. Maybe it is different than it was 20 or 25 years ago. Well, I'll throw the question to you. Is it different? Is it the same, or has yearbook somehow changed over the last couple of decades? What do you think?
I would say that yearbooking is both the same and different. In some communities, having the book look relatively the same with just new pictures put in, but basically the same. If we were to look up football 20 years ago, it would still be on page 80 and 81. And people like that. They like the familiarity of it. They like that touchstone of it's always going to be this way. So in some communities, yearbooks have not changed. But in many communities, we have seen a significant shift from the traditional organization of a yearbook and the traditional coverage of a yearbook, which used to be student life and activities, and then organizations, and then sports, and then academics, and then the people section. Those traditional organizational units have now kind of gotten tossed up, like if somebody just shot 52 cards in the air and then you had to pick them all up and they would not be in order anymore. We've seen a move to a much more lifestyle magazine coverage approach. So not even like we've done a lot of chronological coverage, which again feeds into that lifestyle magazine approach. But we're seeing now even just topical coverage. So rather than seeing music classes covered on the choir page and then facing it is the orchestra page, and then you turn the page and facing that is the marching band page, and facing that is the jazz band page, which is sort of how yearbooks felt in the late 90s and early 2000s. We are seeing a lot of schools switch to musical coverage, and that might be the same number of pages. We might see two full spreads, but now we're seeing little bits and pieces of the choir concert, orchestra concert, those types of things covered, but also in little modules, little pieces, we're seeing student interests in music. We're seeing students who create their own bands, or students who are teaching themselves to play instruments, or even student playlists. So it's become much more individual student and individual interest focused, and a little bit less organizational topic focused. Whether that is chronological or topical, we're just seeing kind of a shake up and a change in how the stories are being told, not the stories that are being told. We're still telling the stories of people who are involved in those organizations, but we're now telling them with, oh, that reminds me of this idea, or this idea, or this idea. So there is a difference and sort of a branching out of, we only cover this, and now we cover this and all of these other pieces as well.
All right. Now, before we move on, one quick sort of additional question there. From your whatever knowledge you've got, are we making the same number of yearbooks as we did, say, 20 years ago? Anybody that follows education has heard the term enrollment cliff, meaning the number of students in schools is starting to go down. And Liz, in my neighborhood that I used to work for 25 years, that actually started about 12 years ago. Schools closing, just outright closing, or closing as part of a consolidation in a school district and so on. I mean, and I hear about colleges now. I mean, we're talking hundreds of colleges starting to close for whatever the reasons they are. From your knowledge, is it maybe we're making fewer yearbooks now because there are fewer schools now? Or is that maybe dependent more on what part of the country you're from? I'm from the Northeast. It's not been friendly.
Yeah.
What do you think on that?
We are seeing a shift in population simply across the United States. People who are moving from one area to another, of course, are taking their families with them. We are seeing a change in overall numbers of children enrolled in school, as we see people who are putting off getting like out of their parents' homes longer. Of course, then they're not starting a family as soon. So we're not seeing children enter the school system as quickly. So maybe what would have been a 20-year gap is extending now to 25 or 30 years. So are there fewer students? In many schools, yes. But I'm also seeing quite a few school districts and schools in general explode in their population as we're seeing industry shift and change, and we're seeing industry draw in people. There are some schools that started off as cute, tiny little schools, and now they are just absolutely bursting at the seams, or They started bursting early, and so they have built on and built on again. For example, there's a school that I get a chance to work with in the Dallas area, a little middle school that's been under construction for 3 years, and they keep adding because there keep being more students going to that school. So their construction woes have been something that they have treated with, yes, we need to cover that, but they don't necessarily cry over it. They talk about how they have a resilient attitude, and they just they go with it, and it's fun. So it's been a significant shift, I would say. There are schools that are closing, consolidating, that type of thing in some parts of the country, but there are schools that are just absolutely growing in other parts of the country.
I figured it's probably where I happen to live, which the population is, again, it's going down. So kind of one thing that led to me decide, I think I'm going to try some other opportunities. So here we are. We're an independent feature now. So that's perfectly fine. Okay, now
Well,
let's.
we see that in general, Scott. We see, before we can see what they call like regentrification, there's always the downside first. So we see, this was a very popular neighborhood in the 50s and 60s, and then it, fell in favor, and then it grew in favor, and then it fell, and then it grew again. So just because things are going down now doesn't mean that they will all stay down. They're just going to be different. And that usually happens in those, 20 to 30 year cycles. People are moving around, and we're seeing different industry. What used to be a mining town has become a battery creation town, things like that.
Sounds like Pittsburgh, near close to where I'm at. Pittsburgh was all about steel, not anymore. Now it's high tech and stuff like that. So yeah, that makes perfect sense. Okay.
We'll return with more from veteran yearbook creator Liz Walsh in just a moment. We'll start to dive into some of her definite ideas on how to get this new school year started, from planning the year to organizing your staff, all that and more coming up in just a bit. Especially for any rookie advisors out there, keep in mind that energy for the school year is never higher than it is right now, here at the start of the year. But that energy, of course, starts to wane just a few weeks in. From our yearbook perspective, that means you need to reach your audience right away. Don't put it off till later. How to do that? A good yearbook is a story book. So start compiling your story list right now. Making pages, that can wait. I always like to simplify, so there are only two kinds of stories: big stories and little stories. Big stories are the ones you cover every year. But don't overlook the little stories, which may only be about one person. But it's important to that person, and they're a part of your group, so hopefully that makes it important to all. Find those little stories inside of the big stories and tell those this year, but not only on your pages, but also on social media or school video boards if you have those. Everyone loves stories. So when you start telling stories every week of the year, maybe just with a picture and a caption, your audience will start paying attention and have a lot more interest in your yearbook this year. Can you say higher sales? Yeah, lots of folks would like that. Active storytelling is one way to get there. Please give that some thought. Now, are you ready for those New Year ideas? We continue our chat with Liz Walsh here on the Yearbooking Report.
All right, now let's get to our main question here for this episode, and we're gonna use the time machine. Okay, we're gonna turn back the clock, so to speak. Imagine, Liz, you're a yearbook advisor again. All right. And the school year is either starting or it's about to start, again, depending on where you are. And I said, let's get some ideas. It's for any advisor, but I'm thinking really especially rookies, second year, third year, relatively newer yearbook advisors, some ideas to help them really get the year off to a good start. Because, Liz, in too many cases in my past, I would get together with an advisor and they would have like, the deer in headlights look, this sort of thing. Like, I'm not sure what I'm supposed to be doing here at the start. And a bad start, I think you touched on this, a bad start is going to lead to bad things later. And so we're going to see if we can avoid some of that. So let's do some back and forth here. All right. What are some absolutely really good ideas that any yearbook advisor can do to help get this year started on the right foot in the right direction? Let's see what you got. All right, toss out
Okay.
a few. Go ahead.
We're going to start with you can't eat the buffalo all in one bite. You do not have a flip top head, and the buffalo is much bigger than you. So do not try to eat the buffalo all in one bite. Instead, create manageable chunks. Okay, so the yearbook needs to be broken down from all of the pages. Let's say you have 60 of them, or 320, depending on the size of your book. Let's break this down into smaller, more manageable chunks that you can complete and achieve and then move on. So that starts with taking a whole school year calendar and getting the calendar of events from the activities office and getting all of the activities schedules from the activities office, and then going to the athletics office and getting all of the athletics schedules from the athletics office, and then planning all of that out, penciling it in, sticky noting it in, writing it in, whatever floats your boat, but putting that all on the calendar, because then you have a better ability of seeing everything all at once. And you can, most schools or school districts have access to a full calendar, or you can find one, I've seen them on Instagram. I still get lots of teacher stuff on my Instagram, a full year planner calendar. But having that all laid out in front of you does make it easier to know what needs to be done now versus what we can put off until later. So there are certain things that have to happen early, and then there are other tasks that you can address at a later date. So start by calendaring everything.
All right. Now, my version of that is not a buffalo, it's an elephant. For years, I would say, okay, the riddle, how do you eat an elephant? And kids would give me a look like, what are you talking about? Eat an elephant? You can't eat an elephant. I'm gesturing with my arms here. I'm like, yes, you can. You eat an elephant one bite at a time. Oh, then the light bulbs start going on. Oh, I get it. Okay. All right. Quick tangent question. Your experience over too many years, you gave a great piece of advice there. There are some school personnel that are not exactly cooperative. I can't tell you, Liz, how many times I had the athletic director won't help us. The athletic director won't give us information. The athletic director, it's usually the athletic director. It's like, okay, are all the athletic directors a bunch of bums? If a yearbook advisor, Liz, is hitting some school management person that's not exactly cooperating, you got any advice on how to help them out? Because I heard that one for years. Anything they can do.
Well,
anything.
there are a lot of people in the school that actually control the information. It's never just controlled by one person. However, that athletic director may be significantly impacted by also coaching and also teaching, or having other duties. I've seen a lot of athletic directors who are a part-time athletic director, but a full-time teacher or a full-time dean of students. So they're dealing with all of that. So one of the best things is to start with a positive attitude and the assumption of cooperation, simply by dropping an email early in the year saying, we're going to be touching base with you for these particular items. We want to make sure that you're aware of that so that you have time to plan. If you could let us know when the best time is for us to ask, that would be really helpful. So we're not bothering you at an inappropriate time. Sometimes they have secretaries, and the secretaries have access to all of that. There may be a school secretary who would have all the information that you need even if it's the athletic director's purview to be in control of that calendar. So ask around, find out who really controls the information, and then make sure that you're starting with those people in a really positive manner. There's nothing wrong with starting with a little bit of a sweet treat. Find out whether they like, I remember a school administrator once told me, find out who likes what kind of pie. And that's what you bring when you have this request that needs to happen right away. So that kind of an approach, just preemptively saying, we want to make sure we don't bother you. When is the best time for us to ask for this? And then, following up, or is there a website that I can just use and not bother anybody? So that is a big one. I think the biggest complaint that I've heard is trying to collect sports scoreboard information. And my way around that is simply you need to have some students who are actually playing the sport and their parents online ready to help you. So, John is playing freshman football. John's mom is an awesome mom. She's the one who's always trying to coordinate, snacks and things for the kids. And so you call John's mom and say, hey, we'd like to make you the yearbook liaison for the year. Could we contact you after a freshman football game to get the score? And John's mom's like, yeah, sure. I'm at every game anyway. This is all I for. And now you've got a person to contact that's outside of the realm of the athletic director, even the coach, and you're getting that information still.
All right. Now, Liz, for a lot of years, I've joked, okay, that the most important person in the front office is not the principal, it's the school secretary. Now, you mentioned that just a minute
That is no joke. That is no joke. That person is the person you need to have on your side. And whatever it is that they like, find out what pie they like. You really do need to get that person on your side. A lot more bees come to honey than vinegar. So you need to start sweet and continue to be sweet, even when they're not having a sweet day with you. That is a really important aspect. Remember to say thank you. Remember to write thank you notes. A handwritten thank you note doesn't need to be something big. Jot it down on a sticky note, stick it on their computer when they're away, or just stop by and say, I just wanted to remind you how much you mean to me, and just leave a sticky note that says, you are so helpful to us. Thank you so much. It doesn't need to be big. It doesn't need to be grand. It just needs to remind them that you are very grateful for the things that they do, because those school secretaries, they do a lot, and they are approached by a lot of people who are not so nice. So when you're nice, you stand out.
Depending on our timing, I may have an AI question toward the end, but I'm seeing all this stuff about human connection, human connection, human connection. And something as simple as a handwritten note is like gold now. It's amazing how things have changed. Some things have changed.
Well, a handwritten note has always been important. That was something that I learned early in my life. My mother and my grandmother were both very, very keen on me writing thank you notes to all of the people who gave me birthday gifts and Christmas gifts. And the reason for that is that's a tangible reminder in a person's hand how much what they did affected you. So writing a thank you note is something that is really a lovely gesture nowadays because so many people don't do it, but it's certainly a skill that everyone can benefit from, not just now, but later. I've seen school administrators who do write thank you notes to the people who work for them just to remind them what a great job they're doing. And those schools tend to be very high performing because when an administrator takes the time to say thank you, that attitude of gratitude feeds everybody.
What's old is new again, folks. It works. It really works. All right, let's move on to another idea. What's something else on your let's get the year started right list? Go ahead.
I think working within the staff and having everybody in your yearbook staff, whether they are volunteers in a club or they are members of a class and earning grades, I think they all need to understand everybody's jobs. So I think doing a couple of days/weeks of training to get everybody understanding the basics of each job is really helpful because sometimes our photographers can't be at an event, but I could step in, and even if this is all that I have, I can still use this in order to get the photos that we need. And I can use that, by the way, in a variety of ways. Maybe I can take pictures. Maybe my camera's not so good, but you know what I can do? I can text other people and ask them to take pictures. There are a ton of parents involved in school activities with their students, and they're taking pictures. So requesting those very directly, that can be a way to get that content that you need. But going back to training everyone, everybody should understand just the basics of each job. Whether they're going to be doing that job consistently or not, they need to at least be proficient. We don't have to get them to a level 4. Let's just get them to a level 2. So at the very least, I can send them out to go take a couple of headshots. We can do some interviews, and we can maybe use some other graphic because we didn't get pictures of an event. But everybody needs to understand the bare bones, the basics. After that, start finding out what people are really good at, and then send people out in teams of 2 or 3, maybe even 4, depending on the event, and have them cover that event from the aspect that is most comfortable for them. Some students would much rather be behind the camera. Other students would much rather be socializing and asking questions. So find those students. And if you have a whole bunch of behind the camera students in your group and you don't have a lot of outgoing students, start partnering early. Go to your student leadership, so anybody in student government. Go to, if you have ROTC on your campus, one of the things they have to do is some community service, so talk to them. Also, they are training. That's part of their class structure, is to talk to other people, to talk to all sorts of people, and so that interaction is good for them. Talk to, if you have Key Club, talk to your Key Club and your National Honor Society. All of those students can become honorary yearbookers for you so that you aren't missing one of the most important parts, which is actually talking to people and finding out what's important to them. We've got to draw our readership in, whether they are looking at photos or reading captions or even reading stories. We need to draw them in. And the way that we do that is we connect with them as human beings. So we do have to have people actually just talking to each other, not just snapping the shutter and moving on.
Actually, follow up. All right. I think a lot of yearbook advisors, and frankly, kids too, think that the only people that should be working on the yearbook are on the yearbook staff. That's it. Nobody else should get involved. All right. Now you're giggling. I'm not sure why. I'm a big fan of, how about we expand to some other helpers to kind of lighten our load a little bit? But some folks get very provincial. It's like, nope, yearbook staff. That's it. That's the only people allowed to do stuff. All right. You were giggling. Why were you giggling? Why is that a crazy idea?
Why should I have to do all the work? Oh, that's right. I don't. I am a huge fan of drawing people in and making them partners in yearbooking, because each person in the school has a different perspective. So each person in the school has something fresh to share. And I think that a yearbook is for the entire school. And I think that everybody in the school has something to contribute to it. They might not all be photographers, so they might not be able to help us take pictures, but they have different experiences and different points of view, and collecting all of those people and getting them on our side is really helpful. I think that honestly, if I ran a school, if I ran the world, things would be different. If I ran a school, I would require that the historian of every single organization on campus also be a member of the yearbook staff. Maybe it's honorary, maybe it's official, but that they are coordinating us to make sure that their group's story is being told. I just think everybody should help. It's the whole school's yearbook. It's not just my yearbook. It's not just my staff's yearbook. The book belongs to the entire school, and whether we're selling it or giving it away as part of our enrollment fees, doesn't matter. It's the whole school's book, and everybody should be involved.
Hey, round of applause. The problem is, again, I think too many folks get provincial, like, oh, only they're supposed to be doing it. No, folks, that's crazy. All right. If you can expand the effort, that's only a good thing. Now, Liz, especially for, I'm going to say, rookie advisors. A very simple organizational chart for an effective yearbook staff. In all the years I was in the field, too many yearbook staffs, their organizational chart was yearbook advisor and everybody, meaning the yearbook advisor is making all the decisions, every single one, and then they wonder why they're getting headaches all the time and getting burned out. A very, I'll use the word simple, a very simple organizational structure for leading the yearbook staff. What do you think that should be?
I prefer to see the structure more like a tree. And so there are roots. Those root decisions are things that I need to deal with as the adult in the room. So those might be legal issues, like making sure that I collect the list of all the students whose parents said, no, do not include my student in any publication, and double checking with those parents. That's an issue for me to do. Then after the roots are taken care of, and those are things that adults need to talk to adults about, or adults need to say, should we really be covering that in that way? Let's have a conversation about it. That's a root decision. Then there's the trunk, and the trunk should be a very strong trunk made up of multiple students. Those are students who have a stake in the quality of this publication. You may, as I said before, need to go outside of your current domain of students to draw in a couple of other student leaders who maybe have stronger ties to the community or better leadership skills, and bring them in and have a conversation about what really belongs in the yearbook, what needs to go in the yearbook, and how we're going to look over all the content to make sure that it's of good quality. So that trunk, that's that group of students. That may be in a small school, 2 or 3. In a larger school, that may be as many as 10. And maybe they have different domains of what they make decisions on, and that you can kind of grow into something like that. Then we have branches, and the branches, those are the more experienced students, or those are the students who have a better understanding of a certain area. Like we might have some students who really are just total grammar nerds, and I love those students so much. Maybe they're the ones who are checking to make sure that we are spelling names correctly, that if we've got captions on our photos, that the captions are accurate and not telling us something that we can see from the photo. So we don't say smiling for the camera, Liz and Scott are at an event. Instead, we talk more about the event and what they might have been doing. And so those word nerds, my people, those students are stronger in that area, and they can actually lead the group and help the group achieve more. We might have students who are better photographers. They're simply better at placing themselves, using their equipment, understanding how to write with light, all of those types of things. So we're looking for students who have already developed some talent or naturally developed their talents very quickly, and we make use of those students, and they become the branches. And then we have additional staffers, and those staffers can be anyone from our volunteer group who has actually chosen to be here to other people who might just help us. And those people are the people who provide us with content or connections or photographs or whatever it might be, or even an idea of this would be a cool idea. What if we covered this? And those people can even be like, one year, my kid who was 5 said, what if you did this? And so I said, well, you should probably propose that to the editor. And he did. And then the editor was like, oh, very cool idea. We should totally do that. So those are the leaf ideas, the leaf suggestions. And so thinking in terms of that, you may have a lot of leaves one year and only a few leaves another year. But if people understand that each one of them has a little bit of contribution to the overall health of the product itself, then everybody tends to cooperate pretty well. And I've mentioned a lot about students and parents, but I haven't really mentioned teachers, and I should mention teachers. Sending an email to a teacher, not a teacher, but to the teachers once a week, checking in with them and finding out when they'll be doing really cool ideas, like the geometry class is going outside and they're going to be drawing these geometric shapes, and they're going to be labeling the angles or whatever the heck they do in math. I like words. But let's go outside and take pictures of drawing on the sidewalk with chalk. There was nothing worse than hearing from students, "Oh yeah, we did the cat dissections last week." I'm like, "Wait, what?" Nobody thought to talk to the science teachers, put that on the calendar and get pictures? Like, ah. So really making use of your faculty and asking them to take pictures if you can't get a student in there, because quite often we've got policies now that are keeping students locked in classrooms, never moving in the hallways, that kind of thing. So ask teachers if they would take a few photographs and show them a couple of photographs of what you'd like to see so that they have an idea. So it's not like, here's our dead cat. But that we're actually getting some good quality photo content. Show them a little bit about what you'd like.
Ah, the old volcano experiment in chemistry class. Poof, hey, everybody loves those. That's kind of cool. All right, the tree. I like that. A tree analogy. I've never thought of that one before. Okay, I like that. That's great. But the bottom line is, for especially rookie advisors, is do something. Come up with something where your kids are very actively involved, not just you telling them what to do all the time.
I can't imagine really truly one industry in which there is one person telling all 500 employees what they need to do that day. That is not how it works. And it wouldn't matter if there were 50 employees or even 5 employees. Okay, so let's take this seriously, in that I am not the boss of you every minute of every day. As the advisor, I advise. You go out and you make some choices, and then we're going to have some conversations about what works and what doesn't, how we might approach this better, how we could have done this better. But it is not all on me. And that's something that new advisors, I was really worried my first year that there would be a misspelled word in the yearbook. Well, guess what? No matter how many times I read it, there were still misspellings in the yearbook. And guess what? That was in 1993, and the world did not end then. So there are going to be mistakes. Our goal is to simply have everybody on the same page. Let's make less mistakes, however many less we're going to make. Let's look it over. Let's do our best to make sure that it's as high a quality as we can make it. But it is not stay up till 2:00 in the morning and do it all yourself. That's not what this job is. And that's not what they're paying you to do. They don't pay the football coach to go out and run the plays on the field. They pay the football coach to coach the team. And the team does sometimes great, sometimes not so great. Sometimes they're just like all over the place. And the coach then has to regroup and rethink and reteach and recoach to get them back out there the next time doing better. That is your job. You are a coach. You are not the doer of the thing.
I agree 100%. Yes. And a line I used for a lot of years, Liz, was the perfect yearbook has yet to be created. All right. Somewhere in there is a mistake, and it's okay. All right. Now, granted, you misspell somebody's name, they're not going to be happy about it. And see if you can come up with a quick solution. Work with your company or your rep. I'm sure you can come up with something and fix it. And other than that, you're good. Okay.
We'll get back to our final segment with Yearbook Creative Manager Liz Walsh in just a moment. So what about good page designing? We have plenty of time to get that started, but Liz shares some ideas for right here at the start. And of course, there's AI, how to use that with Yearbook. Liz and I disagree a little bit on this. Stay tuned for that, coming right up. Let's continue that thought about storytelling, because it's something that few yearbook staffs do well. Now, that's a bit harsh, but it's also honest. Don't fall into the trap of just repeating last year's book. Remember that every school year is unique, different from any other year. The basics may be the same, but the group and individual stories change. Think about a sports team. Their seasons are never alike. New players make an impact. A team makes the playoffs for the first time in a while. Things are always different. The same goes for every aspect of student and school life. Hopefully, you're already gathering story ideas and information and, yes, taking lots of pictures. But don't make people wait 9 to 12 months to finally see your work. Instead, post fresh stories every week of the year as you get them on your school's social media outlets and on those school video boards if you have them. A picture and a caption can tell a story. If you save those together, that's what I call a caption image. You can post them for all to see and do it regularly. I can guarantee you'll start to get people hooked on those short stories to the point where they can't wait for the next one, learning things about their classmates and their school. If your school has an apathy problem, and many, many do, there's no magic solution to just make it go away. But your regular storytelling every week could help to change the situation gradually. And people will have more interest in your yearbook because you've worked to gain that interest. If you need some extra help, contact your company or representative for more ideas. Believe me, they want interest to increase just as much as you do because that could lead to higher yearbook sales. There's a situation where everybody wins. Now, let's return for one more segment with Yearbook Pro Liz Walsh here on the Yearbooking Report.
Okay. All right, I'm watching the clock here a little bit. Don't want to go too long. How about one more idea to help newer yearbook advisors get the year off to a good start? One more. Let's see what you got.
Well, a lot of people want to give their students complete autonomy. And so they say, you can design your whole own spread. And for a student who's new to yearbook or who is inexperienced with designing, that can turn into a week-long accomplishment of nothing. So they put a picture on the page, they take the picture off the page, they put a different picture on the page and they put that picture with it, and then they take them both off because that doesn't look good either. It's too much to ask our students to understand everything about all of the theory behind why design works. And it's too much to ask them to just magically make this happen. It is so much easier to start with, at the very least, an underpinning of, you're going to fill this little square and you're going to put 3 or 4 photos in it. And then you're going to fill this larger square and you're going to put 6 or 7 photos in it, and break up the entire spread or page into smaller, more manageable chunks. My suggestion is, if you're doing spread design, which is 2 pages facing each other, that you break that up into 4 or 5 segments, 4 or 5 modules. Each module can be completed in a regular normal amount of time. So if you are meeting with your club once a week, which I've seen a lot of clubs only meet once a week, the first week, they know how many pictures they have to get for each of their activities, and they make note of what they need to do outside of club time on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of the following week. When they come in again for their next club meeting, now they have content to put in there, and then they can make choices about what they like and what they don't like and how they put it together. But if you break it up by giving them very specific, put this in here, put this in here, that's going to be a lot easier. So at the very least, an underpinning of sections of the page, but most schools work really well with a template that is flexible. So using a pre-created template and then making changes as necessary is probably your best way to approach the design. That doesn't mean that students can't be creative. They can propose a different look, and you can look at that and say, oh yeah, that looks pretty cool. And then you can save that look and other students could use it as well. But I would certainly have a plan of attack, and that means they need to know how many pictures are going to go in this section.
All right, now, right at the end, preface my next question. On a bunch of years, I would encounter folks, rookies, veterans, whatever, they would not use templates because their thought was, well, we want to be original on every spread. And, having a similar template for all the sports pages is boring or something like that. And I'd shake my head like, no, 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 no. How about saving yourself some time and get some consistency of design and coverage? But I would still get that pushback, Liz, sometimes. No, no, we don't want to do that. What's your response to that? You sort of touched on it a minute ago. What's your response to, no, we don't want to do templates? What do you think?
I think that the idea of fighting against a template comes from a misunderstanding of how design works. Students who excel in designing things tend to have studied design and the theory behind design, which is communication. And they tend to do a really great job at that. But not all students have that skill or that talent. So asking every student to be equal-talented to the student who has studied design already is an unfair request. So giving students a baseline and then allowing them to make suggestions or changes to that baseline is much more functional. It's just so hard for every single student to come in at the same experience level. And if all of them do come in at the same experience level, that's usually a zero experience. So let's not ask everybody to do the job that really should be reserved for specific people. Let's instead give them a baseline and then let them be creative based on what they've seen.
Okay, I agree 100%. Templates can be your absolute friend. Save time, consistency of coverage, all that sort of stuff. So for those folks, no, we don't want to use company templates. No, we don't want to give it some thought. And
yeah, I mean, you can change the font, you can change the color scheme, you can change what goes where. Every template that you create can flip this way and this way and this way. That's 4 different looks. So don't say, oh, we're never going to template. Even with my most experienced designers, they still created modules that were click and drag. And that made everybody's job a lot easier. We don't want to make the job harder and more frightening for our students. We want to make the job more accessible to as many students as possible so that they want to do this because it is fun and they do learn a lot, and they learn a lot about visual communication, which is not just a cool thing to know. It's actually one of the standards like that we need to do across all of English. Students need to be able to communicate with words, but also with visuals. So understanding how to communicate clearly starts in understanding that if we do this, then this happens. And so if we have a template, then we have a baseline. We can start with that. No designer starts with a blank page. They all design based on a sketch, a graphic, or an idea.
Yeah, over the years, Liz, I saw plenty of kids essentially, okay, you're doing this spread, and they're staring at 2 blank pages. And there's nothing more scary than staring at 2 blank pages. Like, oh, what am I supposed to do here? No, there's ways around that. So, okay. All right. Now, Liz, we could go for another hour, but we're not going to do that because we need to wrap up. I've got one final question, and I kind of touched it earlier. I'm simply curious because you work for a company, obviously. AI, artificial intelligence. My observation, now I don't think it is inaccurate. It's true. There are some yearbook companies that now are starting to say, they're starting to push back on AI a little bit, or at least that's my observation. Like, nah, maybe we shouldn't do that. Nah, that's not a good idea. Meanwhile, I think I've seen at least a couple of yearbook companies saying, yeah, we're going to do some stuff. Yeah, we're going to do AI and yearbook. I mean, all the different facets, either what's your company's opinion, what's your opinion. It's out there. It's not going anywhere. It's a great tool. I use it regularly. It's wonderful for research and stuff like that. AI and yearbook. All right. What do you think? How should this work? What do you think there?
AI develops an across the board approach to everything, but your school is not across the board, and your students are not across the board, and their own personal identifying information, like their face is actually personal identifying information, and their first and last name is the same. I'm not a fan of putting that out there. I don't put pictures of other people into AI because it's, unless they tell me they would like me to. I don't use it for that particular purpose. I love AI for being my very easy access idiomatic dictionary. The old idiom dictionary for me has fallen by the wayside because it actually was pretty unwieldy, even in its best iterations. So I use it to develop phraseology. I use it to develop extended ideas that I might not have had time to think of because it does so quickly. So I use it for, like, I need a bunch of synonyms or antonyms to this word or this phrase. That's how I use it. But I don't want to be using it to share personal identifying information and things like that. Not a fan. That is for us to do. Like, it's my job as a yearbook staffer to go and find out that this photograph matches with Scott Giesi's name. So I'm a big fan of us doing that work because we're humans. And then us writing our own captions because we're humans and we can talk to the people who were in the photo and we can talk to the people who were at the event and we can get enough information to capture that moment and share it. Not a fan of putting captions and photos into AI and having the caption, putting the photo into AI and having the caption kick back. I don't like that use. I don't think it's good. And one of the biggest concerns about using AI is that AI does not understand copyright law at all. So it will regularly violate copyright law and it makes stuff up all the time. It literally will just make things up. It's called a hallucination. It's a real thing, and it's very difficult to fight. So not a fan of using it for those things. It will also hallucinate phrases too. Like when I'm using it, I'm like, nobody says that. Do not give me phrases that are not regularly used across all of your resources, because I don't want it to give me stupid stuff nobody says.
All right. I don't know. You and I might disagree just a little bit on this. I don't mind
That's okay.
I don't mind AI writing, but if I'm going to produce something, it needs to be in my words. All right, rather than some computer. And of course, there are tons of stories out there. College students and whatever have been caught, and it just spits out. No, you can maybe let the AI write something and decide, okay, I'm going to do my version now. I don't have a problem with that. Actually, I've got an AI program, which is my favorite, and I have programmed it to do a daily yearbook report where it goes out into the web, searches different company websites and so on, controversies. Oh boy, every year we have controversies, right? I think there's a school, I believe it was Louisiana, where the high school staff apparently did something with like senior images, maybe using AI instead of the actual images. And that, oh my gosh, that blew up hugely. That you mentioned it a couple
People were
minutes
offended.
Yeah, that's a no. Don't do that.
I'm a big fan of asking for an outline of information I may want to consider when writing something. And asking it to give me an outline, because then I have a structure. And it just makes me work faster. But I'm not necessarily working on material that will be published that will be something I want to have, be special for my school. I'm working on things that are more like, I need to make this email only 50 words. Or I need to clean up this language or something like that. So there are definitely places where AI is functional and useful. But when it comes to writing a caption, I don't want AI writing captions for my yearbook. I just don't. I want my students writing captions.
Okay, that's cool. All right. Well, Liz, my friend, I tell you, it's always great talking to you because you've got a million ideas. You have a buffalo. I have an elephant. All right. Some of the
They're both too big to eat in one bite.
That's kind of weird. One bite at a time, folks. That's the way it works. Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it. And have a great year.
Thanks. You have a great year too. And all you advisors out there watching this, don't overwhelm yourselves with all the things that could be. Instead, stay focused on the things you can control and make sure that you and your students are working together as a team.
A big thank you again to Liz Walsh from Jostens Yearbooks for giving us some great strategies and ideas to start this new school year. Now you choose either buffalo or elephant, but start figuring out those bites one at a time. Give them all some thought and see how you can integrate them into your program. But don't wait until later this fall. Remember, the energy level is highest in school right now, right at the start. Get your group together and start brainstorming on how you can cover as many stories as possible this year, who's doing what, and then make this year effort your best ever. And thanks again for listening to the Yearbooking Report podcast. I'm Scott Giese. We'll see you next time.